Hey, y'all. Can you all hear us? Welcome. Hope everybody's doing well today. Let me know if you can hear us. Just give us a thumbs up, or we have so many issues with our microphones right now. Everything seems to be going all right. Excellent.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Welcome to our second episode.
Yeah, good to see you all again. Love it. Today we're going to talk about us. Last week we did the weather, and I posted some things to our Facebook page. A couple of podcast shows from Redacted. They've been doing the weather modification series on their show, and really suggest watching their show on Redacted about weather modification, because you learn a lot of things you really don't want to know about. I mean, you do, but anyway, today we're going to kind of talk about more conspiracy theories that seem to be coming true. And you're going to learn a lot today about the good old government and the things that they have hidden from us and that we have found out to be true now. Yeah, so there are so many conspiracy theories out there. Some are true, some aren't, some are yet to be proven true. But we also know that as a conspiracy theorist, which I consider myself, we are told that we're not thinkers, that we need to listen to the mainstream media. That's the news. That's what you need to believe. Well, in truth, conspiracy theorists are people that sometimes overthink, but a lot of good conspiracy theory people will research everything they can and find out what the truth is. That's kind of what it's about. A lot of people don't believe in conspiracy theories because they believe in the mainstream narrative. That's all they care about. What the news tell me, I believe, and that's, we've learned in the last, 8+ years that that's not the truth. And yes, Gary, mainstream media lies all the time. There's a paid narrative there. They're paid to do something, and we're supposed to believe that. And unfortunately, for years, people did. They believed everything the media told them because we had to trust them. They were the news. Well, the news is just like history. Pardon the cat back here. She wanted to be a part of the show tonight. But the news is just like history. History it can be truth. It can be non-truth. We'll never know unless we lived it. And media is the same way. Most people believe what they hear, and that's what they go with. They're not, they don't question why the weather has been so bad. They just say, oh, well, the media tells me it's climate change. And as I said last week, climate change exists. Climate change is always going to exist because our climate changes. It has for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of whatever years. But it's being toyed with now. We talked about that last week. I'm not going to go into any more with HAARP and all the other modifications that are cloud seeding and all that. But with that, when you start looking into just the conspiracy theory of weather modification, you open up and see that there are so many other things. JFK assassination, which those files have been released. Now, I myself haven't read 80,000 pages because I'm not much of a reader, but I'm not going to read 80,000 pages anyway. Correct. Yes, that's right, Jeff. Absolutely. And it's just, we have to use our brains. Most people go through life wanting to just live their life, and that's great. And to stay in that mind frame is awesome. But you also want to look at the future, and for yourself, for your kids, your grandkids, and their grandkids, and what's going on around them. I heard today again, I'll go back to the weather real quick on the Redacted I shared, that in Florida, they're finding chemicals, barium, aluminum. These are all poisons falling from the sky. It's crazy that they would do that. But when we talk about some of the conspiracy theories that have come true today, I'm just going to touch on them because a lot of them are going to be future shows where we're going to do a whole show on them. But some of these are going to baffle you. because they baffled me, and I'm not easy to baffle.
There are some that probably many of you have heard of, but we hope to educate you on some others. And also, as always, we enjoy learning from everyone. So feel free to contribute in the chat if you have more information about it, or toward the end, if there's anything we haven't discussed that you're aware of, we would like to hear about that. And as always, if you do have questions, please type it in all caps. That way we know to look out for that question, and I will try to highlight that and go from there.
Also, we'll be throwing the link in if anybody wants to join in and talk with us, hop on here with us and talk about it. I know everybody has different opinions about conspiracy theories. I think most of the people that we hang out with are really like-minded people. And I love to have conversations with people that don't believe in them too. I'm also the political guy that likes to get into conversations, meaningful conversations with people and talk things. I'm not a person that's angry about it and wants to throw rocks at you or anything. But anyway, let's talk about some of these crazy conspiracy theories that are coming true. Plant I used to work at buried benzene and other nasty chemicals. Patrick, I used to work at an automotive sealant manufacturer. I won't name them, but there are times where our toluene, xylene, hexane, heptane, methyl ethyl ketone might have gone down drains into water, city water, sewer lines. At the time when I worked there, they weren't very safety cautious, follow any kind of EPA guidelines. But anyway, they've changed, I've heard, which is awesome. But how many companies have done that? That's the scary thing. Just dump into lakes and in rivers and stuff like that. The sewers on top of your streets and everything say, to a waterway, so that goes directly to the waterway. It doesn't go to the sewage plant. So when people dump their oil down the sewers, thinking they can get rid of it that way, that goes into our waterways.
Not only that, but I've heard of situations, where people dump their medications, and we'll just say drugs, like we don't know all that's in our water systems. So, but we may cover that later.
So some of these, like she said, you've probably heard about. I know you've heard about the MK Ultra program, which was a CIA. Let's start with this conspiracy theory. Let me find that again. The definition of a conspiracy theory is an explanation for an event or situation that suggests a secret plot by powerful individuals or groups, often without concrete evidence or credible sources. Basically, I look at it, if you're against the mainstream narrative, then you're a conspiracy theorist. But in researching and literally hours of researching things, and I'm not going to get super in depth on these, you learn from FOIA documents and everything that there's so much going on and being done to us as people, as even the animals, with the cloud seeding and the chemicals coming out of the sky, that not only affects the humans, it affects the plants that we eat, the animals that we eat, but it affects everything. It drops into our water. You can't, you look at, like, we invested a lot in life straws, not a lot, but we invested a lot of life straws. And, to think that when the end of the world comes, that, or something cataclysmic happens, that you have to use something to drink water. And that's sad, to filter your water out. I have filtration systems, fluoridation in the water, mercury in your water. All these chemicals and stuff are in our water. It's been proven. And medications too. So that's the stuff that, look at, health, people's health has changed through the years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people's health has changed through the years. We've got autism rates that are going through the roof. We've got C19 and that stuff, all these different things. And I look at it a lot of times as like a germ warfare, like a biological warfare that's going on. And we'll get to that here in a bit. But a lot of you, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the MK Ultra program. It was a CIA program, basically to brainwash people, to get them to do things they wanted them to do, or ways of just controlling people. I use an example of, I believe it was the Naked Gun 2.5 when they program Reggie Jackson to kill the Queen of England. And they make some noise. I forget exactly what it is, but Reggie Jackson pulls out a gun and goes to. Anyway, it's that type of situation. They train them by brainwashing them, and it's been going on for years. And I believe it still goes on. It might have a lot to do with these people that are trying to assassinate the president. I don't know. That's kind of my philosophy, because there's a lot of interesting things when you get into those people. But the MK Ultra program, one I just kind of learned about, I knew about it a little bit, was the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. And that had to do back in from 1932 to 1972, the government, I'm going to say it was a government, but it's probably, well, the CIA wasn't around back then, used 400 black men and were sticking drugs in them and poisons in them. And this went on, like I said, over 40 years. Well, 40 years. And people were getting sicker. It was also the time when penicillin was already out, and they knew penicillin cured syphilis. Well, helped with the treatment of syphilis. But they weren't using that. They were using many different drugs on these African-American men. And it's a big deal, but it came out before it was a conspiracy theory. It never happened. Then the papers came out, it got shut down. The program got shut down. And, you know, again, these are our people. These are U.S. citizens in our country that they're doing this to. Our government also overthrows a lot of other nations' governments that we don't like their leaders. And it's always been a conspiracy theory when, you know, say like we can go Libya. You know, I've heard a lot of things about Muammar Gaddafi and all of that. And he was an odd individual, but our government did not like him. You know, we supplied him for a while, and then we decided we were getting rid of him, and we did whatever we had to do. So we made him a bad guy. His people took him down. It's like that all over the world. You know, I'm not just saying it's our government, it's every government does it. Yeah, that's right, Patrick. LSD has been a big thing. That was a big part of the MK Ultra program, was using LSD. Puts you in a vegetative state, basically. Never done LSD, so don't look at me that way. But it's just the things that they did more than just LSD. They did so many different experiments on people, and it's sad. And I know that they want to learn things, you know, the effects on people, but when you use it as a program to do things, that's wrong. That's, you know, for years we tested drugs on lab mice, and that, you know, sounds cruel, but that's a good way to learn. But to do it on our people, that's horrible. That's horrible. How do you trust your government?
On a different level, Coca-Cola is very prevalent in Mexico, right? I think it's been a long time since I've seen it, but they pretty much have gotten Mexicans, I'm not sure in which area, addicted to Coca-Cola. And I think they drink it probably more than water. Like, yeah. It's a shocking effect that has after effects that, you know, that's just sad.
And we all know that Coca-Cola is horrible, horrible for you. I mean, I've heard it can take rust off the bumpers. I mean,
battery acid,
the things it can do.
And it's not just Coca-Cola, it's, you know, Coke products and etc. But anyhow,
right,
not drug related, but still addiction.
Also, the U.S. secret experiments on its own citizens. In the 40s and 50s, the U.S. government conducted secret experiments on its citizens, including radiation experiments and mind control programs, MK Ultra. They discovered these experiments and brought them to light in the early 90s. And I guess what baffles me, and we do this to third world nations as well. We know that the gentleman that we don't like, well, most of us probably don't like, that's supposed to be a computer guy but thinks he's a doctor. They did this in South Africa to tribes of people, these tests and everything. And we don't know why. I'm assuming because they think they're, like lab mice. I don't know, but it's sickening that we do these things. We've just learned recently the CIA's involvement in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And that's a big one. We've always, if anybody's ever watched the footage, it's not right that there was one shooter. You see his head go back, you see his head go forward. There's just so much involved. And now that we're learning that possibly the CIA, the KGB, the mob, and other groups were involved in this, but they kept that hush hush. And again, it was a conspiracy theory that's now being brought to light, and we're finding out that it's more real than we thought. A good one for me is Food and Drugs, or the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. We all know that a lot of talk have been with Robert Kennedy Jr. in now, that chemicals in our food from, I believe it was Red 40, there's so many of them that are cancer-causing agents. If we look at your labels, our labels here in the United States compared to the labels in Europe where they've outlawed all this stuff, it's funny to me because everybody talks about how food in England is bland, or in Europe, I know they use lots of spices. In the United States, we might use spices, but we use other chemicals to maybe make the food taste better, to make the food more presentable. If anybody that knows meat, I think Jeffrey Arrington talked about this one day on chat about the color of meat when you buy store-bought as opposed to butcher. The colors they put preservatives in your store-bought food, and it changes a lot. So, that's the kind of things we need to pay attention. A lot of people, I'm 57 years old, and I feel that I'm in very good health for my age, but I know a lot of people that are my age that are going through, just in case. I know a lot of people that around my age that are getting sick, that are having heart conditions, that are having blood pressure conditions, and this, that, and the other, and have all kinds of problems. I'm not saying I've lived a great life. I definitely haven't. But in the past, at least 10 years, I've started to eat better, watch what I'm eating, looked at labels. And I feel it's helped me. I drink a teaspoon of olive oil every morning before I get, after I get up, not before I get up, because that would be really, really weird. Wake up in the kitchen with a spoon in my mouth. But I take olive oil. I make sure I take vitamins. You got to be careful with your vitamins, because I don't know if you know this, but some of your Nature's Way and some of those vitamins are actually owned by Pfizer and some of these big prescription organizations or medication organizations. So you really have to be careful with that as well. I know that there was a couple of these companies have bought out to big pharma. I know Burt's Bees was one that was touted as all natural, but they sold out to big pharma. Hey, it's all about the money, I guess, right? But
there was another one. I have to tell this. I'll come back to that. This needs to be known.
But that's just pay attention to your food. I think if you really start doing that, it'll make you feel better, at least healthier wise. I'm not saying that it's going to stop you from having heart issues. If you've been eating this way your whole life, that's probably where it's come from. And it's hereditary as well. You're looking, and Diane Fowler, red dye, correct.
Mm-hmm.
This stuff shouldn't be in our food, but they're doing it. Now I'm going to throw my conspiracy end out, is the population control. And I say this because we went through the C-19 epidemic. We've also had to deal with, I think you all know about the New World Order. It's been mentioned by many politicians. It's been mentioned by actors, actresses. There's been books written about it, but it's a conspiracy theory. if anybody remembers, there used to be a thing called the Georgia Guidestones that were in Georgia, and I give you the town, but I don't have it right in front of me right now. But on the Georgia Guidestones, I do. I'm going to find it real quick. Talk.
Okay, so Gary, I see your comment here, and I've been through that with my dad. He had a lot of heart issues, and I also love to cook. And so I just have to say, I know a lot of people love salt. I don't personally. There's a whole world of seasonings out there. And, you know, I personally go with low sodium or no sodium on most things if I can. But and I want to do a show on this completely because we don't think, a lot of people don't read labels. I do, we do. You eat something and you think you know what's in it, or you don't look at it, or you don't care. There are so many ingredients in the foods that most of us eat. And I personally try to be as minimal as possible on the ingredients list. And I try my hardest to make homemade as much as possible. But it's crazy and it blows my mind because if we go to a restaurant, I'm like, if I think about it, I'm like, there is no telling how many ingredients are in this whatever's on my plate. So yeah, I know it's not fun to have to go without salt. There are salt substitutes, which I'm sure you're aware of. But it really, it can be, you can make incredible food without adding salt to it. So, and then Sharon, yes, the processed foods. And I personally think that we still don't even know all that's in there, even though they give us an ingredients list. But we will cover a whole show on ingredients and foods and addictive foods and dyes and FDA.
Basically
and
big pharma stuff too.
So we will cover that. Also, yes, Catherine, I've read about that. And I will talk about that too. And I have been making my own cleaning, like facial cleaning products and facial scrubs and things like that. But I haven't made it yet, but I will be making my own foundation. So yeah, to me, it all matters. You know, you might not be eating it, but I love the fact that what I've made to clean my face is something I could eat or drink. You know, it's as simple as that. So that's my goal, to be as much of that as possible.
Right.
So let's get back to where Chad left.
Well,
off.
I couldn't find my info on the Guidestones, but I highly suggest reading about the Georgia Guidestones. They're not there anymore. They blew them up somebody blew them up in 2022. But the Guidestones talk about what they want the population to be, which I believe was 500 million. I believe. Yeah, 500 million. What kind of life they want you to lead. It's really crazy when you read this. And if you read it, you'll look at things that have been tried to have been implemented over the past, we'll say, few years. You know, the mark of the beast, where the chip underneath your skin is another thing that they kind of talk about, where you have, you know, and I saw the commercial for that where somebody's really thinks it's cool that they can hold their hand over this thing and it reads their, I don't know if it's a chip or their palm print, but I don't want that. I really don't want that. Maybe I'm old fashioned, but I just don't think they need to have that kind of, you know, anyway. So the U.S. government has also been involved in starting wars and coups all over the world. And, you know, we didn't really know about this until probably the 80s and 90s when this all started coming out. And it's just, I always tell her, I love my country. I am a diehard American. I will die for my country. But we aren't good people, not us. Our government are not good people. And these people we have in power all the time, you know, lifelong people that have been there for 40 years, 50 years. It just, there's something going on. And I'm not going to go into my good versus evil, even though I think most people look at that's what's going on. There's a good and there's an evil, and evil is trying to prevail. So just be a good person. How's that? But there's been so many, let's go with the UFOs. That's a conspiracy theory, Roswell. And that's a thing that, over the years we've learned. In fact, last year, the year before, they finally came out and admitted that this is all real. And it's really funny to me because it was never really announced on the news. Like the news were like, no, we're not going to talk about it, even though it's come out that it's real. But here's one of the things I have a problem with. When the government comes out and tells me it's real, it makes me question it even more. Maybe them coming out and, oh yeah, that's real, no big deal. And then we say, oh, okay, it's real. We're not staying on top of it. I mean, if UFOs are real and aliens exist, and I know that some of you people have seen you in the chat have seen UFOs, besides Bigfoot and other cryptids. And that's going to be another topic for me. I know you guys, we are all in that topic, but they've kept that from us forever. And a lot of you people have had those experiences. And that's what I want you to realize, that you've seen those. Let's say you've seen Bigfoot. That was a conspiracy theory. What else are they hiding from you besides that? And that's what people need to question. I've always been a person that's questioned everything. Obviously, the older I get, the more I question. And I'm learning so much because of the questions I'm asking. Mm-hmm. And I thank this community. Again, I'll go back to Roger and Greg, because are the first two I talked to, for getting me involved in the cryptid community. From the cryptid community, my beautiful wife here finally told me, well, she's been bugging me about it. You need to do stuff on conspiracies, because that is all you talk about. I'm a huge conspiracy, just because I like to question everything. Something is happening for a reason. Why is our weather so bad? Why are so many people getting sick? Why have autism rates gone through? Now we're hearing about measles making a comeback. All of these things, just question it. That's the thing we need to do. Just be curious. I'm not saying spend your whole day on it or your whole week. Just every once in a while, just type into the computer. Don't go with the first answer, because what you'll learn is they pile things in front of your question that the mainstream media wants you to know. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about some websites to hit later that you can go to. They're independent people. They have independent journalists. They do their research. I'm not saying you have to believe it, but question it. That's what every independent person tells you. Question, do your research, and you'll learn. Mm-hmm. That's how it works. And that's what I'm still doing with conspiracy theories. So remember the cigarette industry and how back in the 60s and 50s and even the 40s, they said cigarettes weren't bad for you. You'd see professional football players on the sideline smoking cigarettes in between downs. It was like
that's crazy.
An energy booster, I guess. And that's how they promoted it. It was, it wasn't bad for you. What was the 4 out of 5 doctors recommend smoking, even that was a toothpaste commercial. But let's say 4 out of 5 doctors recommended it. And well, 10 years later, the 4 doctors were probably dead that recommended it. I'm not saying. We know that smoking is bad. Smoking can cause anything you inhale that's a smoke of any kind is going to damage your lungs. We know that. But for years, they hid that from us. And then finally, tobacco industry is still out there. I'm not saying, they've gone to smokeless now. They've gone to vapes. They've gone to chews and dips and everything else, which people still do. We live in a small country town where it seems like 90% of the population smokes. Hey, that's their thing. That's their thing. By now, the dangers of it. I don't tell anybody not to do anything. It's your life. Live it up. Enjoy it. Just realize that there's going to be repercussions. But the government is, they hid that forever, pretty much. But it got brought to light by somebody, probably somebody that was mad at the tobacco industry and decided to chase it all down. They've also done a lot of experiments with our children, from vaccines, and I'm not tearing vaccines apart, but we need to really watch and learn what's in those vaccines. We weren't, but vaccines, pardon me, can't go by. Oh, sorry. We were given vaccines, or people were given vaccines that weren't completely proven to work. And now there seem to be repercussions, people getting sicker, people having heart attacks, clots. I'm not going to go into that, but that's what I'm finding out. And we really need to question that. I think, was it the polio vaccine? It was one of the vaccines that took 50 years to make. Now I realize science is different from 50 years ago to today. I completely understand that. But what are they testing these on? And did they do really any testing, to be honest with you? Or did they just start, hey, we need to take care of this, let's do it, and don't get me started on the actual C-19 sickness. I've got a whole nother show I'll do on that one too, before they kick me off, because that one will get me, But anyway, why are they doing this? Why are they doing all this to us? Well, if when I go through all these lists that I've gone through, I go back to the New World Order and population control. I mean, people were living longer than they used to. So, it puts a burden on the system, is what they say. And yes, Diane, I do. Dr. Stephen Greer. There's so many different reasons they give you, but I'll bring up a good example. And this isn't a conspiracy theory. It probably was for a while. You guys remember Dr. Jack Kevorkian and his assisted suicide? Well, now Canada has assisted suicide. So you can go in and just tell them, I suffer from depression. I don't want to live anymore. And apparently, and I don't know everything about it, you can be, put down like a dog or a cat that's got rabies or whatever. And that's just kind of odd that they're willing to do that instead of helping people be better. And so it leads me back to population control. Well, hey, if they're willing to do it themselves or whatever, we're great with that. I'm not. Anyway, we've talked about LSD. It was a big. How about pesticides and the effects of pesticides? We're finding out now. You hear the commercials on TV. If you've ever used Roundup and you have cancer now, well, you can. Every lawyer comes out and says now you can sue everybody. But look at what's in your chemicals that you're using on your yard. We're one of those people, and I know Misty's in here somewhere, or listening at least, and there's probably more. Oh, there we go. Population control to keep in order. We are stronger than, yeah, absolutely. And I bring it up because Eric and I, we kind of use things out of our yard, our grass. Dandelions, we make dandelion tea and other things. Plantain, she could probably go off a whole list. She's going to do a show on those types of things. But so we don't use chemicals in our yard. Now, I say that knowing that there's chemicals coming from the sky. And what I meant, something I didn't mention last week on the weather related show was that when these chemicals get sprayed, they land on the ground, obviously, in the water, in the grass, on our crops, on our forests. There's large amounts of deforestation going on. Farmers are having problems with crops. And I still all goes back to population control. Less food, eventually less people. So that's the things we have to look at. That's the things you need to keep an eye on. And well, vaccines are my pet peeves. Most vaccines are very valuable. Yes. Yeah. And it's I just ask people, I know I was vaccinated when I was a kid. You had to be. And for measles, polio, and whatever else they gave you back then. but just people, we didn't look at it back then as a bad thing. Now people are questioning everything. So if you question it, research about it, find out, they should probably release the vaccine and what it can do, side effects, before it actually gets released. Is the way I look at it. And that would make some people, there's definitely a lot of anti-vaxxers that will never have a vax. Probably, and after this, after this latest C thing scare, they'll probably never have a vax again. And that could be a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. I think it'd be a bad thing. But our other conspiracy theories that have been proven to be true is that we did secret experiments on prisoners. Now, I don't know what kind of prisoners in prison, obviously not wartime prisoners, but we did secret experiments with medications, with chemicals and how they reacted. I know they did stuff with electricity. We used them for the MK Ultra programs. But for the longest time, those didn't exist. And now we're learning through FOIA that they do exist. And that's the kind of things we need to, question it. Why don't you go ahead and throw the link in the chat, and if anybody else wants to hop on and talk with us. But we've overthrown governments. We found out there's mercury in vaccines. What I was saying about stuff from the sky, there's mercury coming from the sky. There's the barium, there's aluminum, there's chemicals that don't belong in large amounts in our body because they're poison. And that's the stuff we need to be scared of. So, but let me go. I got some more stuff here. This is the one I really wanted to talk about. And I'm into these. We'll start with this one. If anybody's ever followed the mainstream news, which we all have growing up, especially when we're younger, we noticed that a lot of the news was the same. That they all said the same thing. And when you research that, you find out that the CIA had an operation called Operation Mockingbird. Now, we know what a mockingbird does. Anyway, I laughed because I sent a meme to her one day about a mockingbird. But Mockingbird, it repeats. And if you just go on YouTube, type in Operation Mockingbird and look at some of these videos where news stations all over the United States are saying word for word the exact same thing. It's not just news stations. If you've paid attention to politicians lately, yes. Yep. I'll have to check the Nuremberg Code out again. It's been a long time since I looked at that. But our politicians all reading the exact cue cards, sitting in front of a television, telling you how bad life's going to be. Same words from each politician. And that should be concerning to everybody, because I like to think that her and I think alike, but I couldn't repeat word for word something that's in her brain. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's called the propaganda machine. You repeat something, people will eventually believe it over and over and over. And if you're doing the mainstream media and you're repeating over and over and over, then they're going to believe it. That's what you want, at least. Athletes will do it. Media will do it. Politicians will do it. Anybody that's paid to get you to try to change your mind, they just repeat the same things over and over. Make yourself free of that. Don't watch the mainstream news. Watch independent journalists. I'm not saying all of them are correct. That's what your brain's for. You do your own research and you'll learn. And that's the best thing you can do. But Operation Mockingbird, wow. It involved the New York Times, Newsweek, CBS, and other media outlets and politicians. It said they had around 3,000 CIA employees and large global media outlets helping with this. And it had a lot to do with the writing of George Orwell's 1984. Yeah, I'm looking at it right here. I'm looking at that. Anyway, that is a surreal movie if you watch it, because identify a lot of things that are going on in these times, what he had in his book. And I feel the same way with the movie V for Vendetta. It has a lot of similarities to what was going on and what they're trying to stop us from doing. COINTELPRO was another one. That's where the government got involved in anti-war groups, and we're spreading information through those, try to counterintelligence everything. Another thing that concerns me is something that our government did. It was a conspiracy theory. These are all conspiracy theories that have been proven true. Is Operation Northwoods. Now, if anybody knows what Operation Northwoods was, Operation Northwoods was a CIA program. Basically, they were going to create a red flag event here in the United States, whether it was blow up a city, dirty bomb, terrorist attacks, and they were going to make it like it was the United States, like it was Cuba or Russia doing it. Remember the movie Red Dawn? Fortunately and unfortunately, John F. Kennedy caught on and had that program nullified or nixed to that program. And I also think that that's one reason they wanted to get rid of John F. Kennedy, because, his brother Robert was big into anti-mob and everything else, which is also, if you ask me, the same thing the CIA is. Basically, it's a government arm of the mob. But they were into that, and they decided that they wanted to take them out and end that problem. But if you think about that, if our government was willing to blow up its own citizens, which we'll talk about 9/11 someday, but they were willing to blow up their own citizens and just to start a war with a country. And we all know why most countries want to start a war: finance. It's all about money. It's military contractors, politicians. They all make big money off of war. That's the thing, that's you see that going on now. Truly do. There's one faction of us that wants to get the war in Ukraine over with and in peace. And there's another faction that says we should be sending our troops over there to die for a country that has nothing to do with us. Another topic. I don't want to get involved in that part of politics right here. But so anyways, if they're willing to do that with their own citizens, then they're willing to do anything to us. If they want us to die in a war, they want us to go to war, they're willing to do anything with us. And again, it goes back to me, population control and control in general. I talked about the New World Order and the Illuminati, deep state, you call it whatever you want. The Bilderberg Group, Bohemian Grove, all these different secret societies. These are all people of power that have the ability to change your life forever. And that's the things we should all be afraid of, that these groups of people control the things that we do day to day, or can control the things we do day to day. And I just think that more people are opening their eyes to this, and that's a good thing. When they came out and said that, conspiracy theories are bad, theorists are bad people, that they spread disinformation and misinformation, or whatever information you want to call it. I always said that we're the ones thinking. We're the ones that are thinking outside the box. What ifs? And anybody that's watched me on any of the Old Line or Beards and Boogers, even on Woodwalkers, I've always said that two words that have always been in my mind is question everything. Don't just sit back and take the narrative. Question it. Why are they saying what they're saying? Sometimes it could be truthful and sometimes maybe not. But question everything. Now, one of the things I did want to talk about too, again, a lot of these I'm just talking quick and short about because I want to do a whole show and get guests on for these whole shows. And my goal is to build up enough confidence in somebody to come on here that knows the program. If I'm talking about, let's say, the New World Order, somebody that knows a lot more than I do, that's willing to talk about it, and I'll ask the questions and everything. But I went on this website, and I don't know exactly what website. All I did was ask. I wanted to know what conspiracy theories were true, and what conspiracy theories turned out to not be true. And I kind of laugh about that because I asked, it gave me 17 debunked conspiracy theories that people actually believe. And of course, the moon landing, that the moon landing was faked. I still am in the air about that. I've seen good shows that show me that it was real. I've seen good shows that show me that it was fake. So I investigate. I've seen a lot of things that show me more as faked than real. But I agree with Chad. The doctors have done a good job. Yeah. It's so again, you're going to believe what you want to believe. I still question it, whether it was real or not. Did we put a man on the moon? Most of our astronauts have died off. What happened to the moon program? If we landed men on the moon in the 60s and 70s, why aren't we landing men on the moon now? Is there a reason there's another conspiracy theory there that we visited Martians on the moon and they pretty much said, out of here. Conspiracy theory. Can I prove that one? Definitely not. The earth is flat. Now, I'm one of those people that I can't believe that the earth is flat. Everything I see, have seen, it looks like it's pretty round to me. But there are people out there, and I'm not going to dispel them because I can't prove it. In fact, that's why we do our own research. The earth could be flat. Now, my joke I make is if the earth was flat, cats would have pushed everything off the edge of the earth because that's a cat. Anyway, this one I thought was funny. Now, remember, these are 17 debunked conspiracy theories that people actually believe. This one said that the Illuminati controls the world. I believe there's somebody that controls this world. And I'm not talking religiously. I'm talking a political factor that controls what we do, and they're trying to aim us in directions they want to aim us in. Again, I talked about the Georgia Guidestones. I highly suggest it's you can Wikipedia that stuff. I don't suggest Wikipedia anything, but you can Wikipedia, you can just go on Georgia Guidestones and there's probably still a website on it. It'll tell you it was in, I believe, 9 different languages, like English, Swahili, probably Greek, just Sanskrit, I think it was one of them. Anyway, all these different languages, it tells you the things they want to control. And why would somebody make that? And there's a whole conspiracy theory with that on who made it. The guy name was R.A. Crucian. And if you know anything about conspiracy theories and the Rosicrucians, religious sect, anyway, we can, yeah.
English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, traditional Chinese, and Russian.
So there's no German. There is Spanish, no French. So it's kind of interesting there, the language it picked. But anyway, yes, William, definitely. The Guidestones were really bizarre. And somebody blew them up in 2022. Apparently they had cameras on and they saw the people drive to and drive away, but they never found out who the people were that blew them up or why. So that's interesting. Now, this next one is a conspiracy theory that I am, obviously you guys know from last week's show, that I question. Now, the way they word this is climate change is a hoax. That's what, they say we're saying, that climate change is 100% real. Climate changes all the time. We have an ice age. We have overheating. It happens all the time. Right now, I think we're going through a man-made speeding up climate change for financial reasons, to get people for people that start green companies or already own companies to switch them over green, they get incentives to do it. And, I think that's what they're doing with HARP and many other things. 5G or the NextRad. That was another one I heard somebody shared that with me last week. So I looked that up, and that's crazy, using NextRad to move storms, to move hurricanes. I'm not saying it's real, but as a conspiracy theorist, it's there, and I will look at it and I will think for myself. And you don't have to believe what I say. I have to believe what I say. And that's it. So the climate change, again, that's Kind of goes with the next one was chemtrails are poisoning the population. I don't know if everybody in chat believes me, but I believe chemtrails are 100% true. I believe they're putting something in the air for particular reasons. We're breathing in chemicals we're not supposed to be breathing in. It's affecting our health. It's affecting the crops. It's affecting trees. It's affecting bees. There's been a depopulation in bees. And that's a big thing because when we lose bees, from what I understood, if we lose the bee population, we have 2 years left of mankind. The bees and what they do, and I'm just not just bees, but bees and other pollinators. If we lose them, then we lose plants. We lose lots of stuff, and pollination is a big thing with trees, all of that, and a lot of our food supplies rely on grass, rely on hay, and all these other things, and none of that'll exist. So we really need to be. We really need to worry about what they're putting in our air. Don't look at it as climate change. Look at it as a reality that something is going on. Because look at the other stuff. Look at our hurricanes getting more powerful. Look at our tornadoes getting more powerful and more tornadoes. Look at the rains are getting harder, but they're only in places that really never have drought. And if you have a drought, why aren't people tell me if they have the ability to mess with the rain, then let's see what William. I love William. I have to disagree with Chad at least a little on climate change. I don't think it's man-made. That's kind of what I mean, William. Climate change is real, but I think it's being sped up. I think it's being manipulated to be worse. That's my philosophy. Again, that's how this works, and I love that comment, William. I definitely do. I love to have the back and forth with that. I just think knowing what chemicals that I'm reading about, that I'm researching about, that they're putting in to do certain things, it can be possible. And that's what if it can be possible, then I have to put that in the back of my head that those could be happening. But, the next one was C-19 was planned or is a hoax. I definitely don't think it was a hoax, but we know that the COVID virus, and William would probably be a great one to talk about this with. The COVID virus has been around. COVID is COVID. It's, if you ever bought a bottle of Lysol, it'll tell you it kills COVID germs. But COVID-19, I don't want to say it. COVID was, I think it was modified. Again, I'm going to go back to the population control thing. And if that wasn't the population control, maybe the vaccine was the population control to get people to take it. I myself had C-19. Erica has C-19. We didn't get the jab. My father passed in 2021. My father had COPD. He had cancer survivor, and he had other things going on. When he passed, one of the things they said was that it was C-19. They put him on the respirator. I still am curious about that because I didn't know his oxygen levels. But when I was there with him, his oxygen levels were what I thought was, I think 95, 96, 97, which I thought would be pretty good. But, I wasn't at the hospital the whole time. I went, at that time, C-19 was big and you could have one person at a time in the room. But for them to put that down as his actual cause of death is kind of, anyway. So I don't want to get told that's going to be a show in itself. One of the ones that I kind of laugh about, but I don't, are the reptilian elite. That there are lizard people that are possibly in control of us. Maybe that's the Illuminati. I don't know. But it is a good thing to think about. We don't know. And if you study ancient history, and I'm talking like all the way back to the Mayans, and I not say I studied it, I did take it in school. I have looked at it. They drew creatures on their walls that we don't see now. And you got to understand, why were they drawing these creatures? Thank you, William. Yeah, that's what I think. But anyway, Why did they draw these creatures on the walls? I think you draw what you see. If you look at caveman creatures, they draw a stick bear. They draw, a stick person throwing spears. They throw that, they drew that kind of stuff. But if you look at the Egyptian pyramids, not cave drawings, but inside their pyramids, the drawings, the hieroglyphics, you look at the Aztecs and the Mayans, you look at things that they created. I could go and my suggestion is watch Ancient Aliens on a lot of this stuff, but there has been proven that there's been technology way ahead of its time used to build a lot of those things back then. We talk about, how do you build a pyramid with just people and as big as those stones are? It just seems kind of like kind of impossible back then. I've heard of sound waves, them using sound waves, but we don't really use sound waves for anything now. We use giant cranes and everything else. So maybe they were a little more advanced than kind of we are. I don't know. Again, conspiracy theory. It does interest me to know that. I heard there was a gentleman somewhere that built, I think it was in Florida, that built some kind of thing with all these big heavy stones, and he said he did it with sound waves. That was never proven. Who knows? That's just how it goes. I'm sorry. That's the sound waves, frequency, and vibration. That's what's been talked about, but we don't do that with anything. And so were they more further along than we are right now? Was society back then more advanced than they are now, than we are? It's interesting because, again, I go back to who writes history. I always say history is written by the winners, the victors. So it's a question that I always ask myself: what part of history is true? What's real? Most of the people that have lived through history have died, so we don't know exactly what they think. If you went by some things, I could write a history book and none of it be true at all. That's just how it works. I can make history the way I wanted it to be. That's just how. Again, research. Yeah, see good oxygen levels between 95 and 100. Yeah.
Okay.
Other fun ones are, Elvis Presley's death. I don't know. It's nothing I've ever looked at. But, people say that he lived, that there were all kinds of things that pointed to him still being alive. And there's big factions of people out there that still think he's alive. Well, I'd say he'd be really old by now, but that happens. But Adolf Hitler is the one. I don't know if anybody paid attention, but I believe it was 2 weeks ago, the president of Argentina, Javier Milei, provided papers, and I'm trying to think of the word, but that Adolf Hitler escaped Nazi Germany and a bunch of other Nazis and were living in Argentina. And there is a TV show, it's on the History Channel with, what's the gentleman's name? He's a former SEAL.
Oh.
Tim Kennedy is on it,
Oh.
and he does the investigations and helps with the investigation team. And they've, shown that the Nazis were in Argentina. They've shown artifacts that were there and not Nazi memorabilia. So, again, another conspiracy theory that if somebody really wanted to know, but the fact that those papers have been released by Javier Milei and the mainstream media is not talking about it should make you wonder what's really going on. Not that I cared that he survived. I don't care, but why would they hide that? Just like it brings up another good one, Operation Paperclip. Operation Paperclip is where the U.S. government, instead of arresting all these Nazi scientists for crimes, brought those Nazi scientists to work in the United States to do work on the rocket manufacturing, missile manufacturing. Werner von Braun, he was a big part of NASA. So these are all the things that, again, question it. It's why would we bring over all these people? Yeah, they helped and we created a rocket industry, and I don't think we're really using it that much. Tesla seems to be doing more, SpaceX, than NASA, but which is really weird, right? That one man's company can do more than a country's company. Anyway, and then one more I'll hit on is the 5G technology. That's a big conspiracy theory. Talking about being able to manipulate our minds with it. Oh, by the way, I did read something the other day and I just saw another thing on it. Did you know that the government had created a heart attack gun, the CIA? So it was a gun that shot a little dart that, I'm not sure the chemical, but it would go into your skin. Just a little red dot would form, and that's it. Hardly could see it. And it would dissolve in your skin. They couldn't find it. And it would cause a heart attack in your body, and you would just die. Apparently, they've used that. It's really crazy. You kind of wonder why they would do something like that. I mean, not really. The spy game is a big game. And Rusty, man, I'm going to have you on the show. We're going to do some talking because I love the things you're talking about. And again, Erica will post a link. You don't have to get on now, Rusty. We'll do a whole show, you and I, and Erica, of course, sidekick. But if anybody wants to get on to talk about a conspiracy theory you know about, we're all here to learn. I definitely don't know everything that I'm talking about. I've researched to a point. I can't spend every day, or I'm going to be the guy chain smoking with strings of yarn behind me from picture to picture, living in the dark. And I'm not going to be that person. But there's just so much going on. And to call us conspiracy theorists when we should be called free thinkers because we think for ourselves, we don't let other people tell us how to think. And that's how it needs to be. That makes us a stronger community, if you ask me. But yeah, let's see if I got anything else I'd like to talk about. Erica, you got anything to say?
So going back to that company at the beginning of the show, I won't buy their products anymore, but it's the Bragg company. A lot of people are familiar with their apple cider vinegar, and it was purchased several years ago. A combination of people, but I believe it's mostly Katy Perry and Orlando Bloom. So I won't be buying that anymore.
Yeah.
Also, I heard of that years ago from Off Grid with Doug and Stacy was the channel I heard it on. So I'm glad that they shared that information. And if you're into homesteading or even a little living off grid, that is a great channel on YouTube. It's Off Grid with Doug and Stacy if you want to check that out.
Yeah, it's a really good show. They let you know, Stacy is great with all the plants and what to do with them and how to cook them and all of that. And Doug's good with the homesteading. They put out some good shows. I think Erica started to make a list of a lot of things that we watch to share with you guys if you don't. Mm-hmm. But we'll talk about that when she's ready.
Yeah, since he's looking up, I'll go ahead and go over that. There are a few channels, several channels that we wanted to mention. They've been very supportive of us and we've learned a lot from them. So I wanted to start, it's really in no order, but first off, Woodwalkers and Squatch and Holler. That's really what started it for us last year when we met Roger and Greg. And so also those who have helped us, Bigfoot 911, we got Wendell there. And then Cedar Creek Bottoms Farmstead Life, which is Mark and Becca. And we're kind of similar in that we have open topics and open conversations. And they're great to listen to. I really enjoy listening to Mark's history and his local information. And then Becca is good with the plants and foraging. And we've also got Old Line Cryptids. And so we've got Jerry and Jeffrey and David. And they also have their Beards and Boogers division. And then Jerry's also got EEP pooling videos with tractor pulls. and they've just been so very supportive of us, and we appreciate that. So we've also got to mention the blues doctor, Mr. William Robinson. Rusty, we checked out his channel recently.
Check it out.
That format is awesome. It is so informative, and you'll even get to hear him play a song. It's a really cool format and very creative what he's done. Also, Muddy Creek Podcast, which is Miss V, and used to be the Not So Perfect Bigfoot Show. She's a great lady. She often has Don Gumout on there. Southern Belle Bigfoot. Selena is a sweetheart. It's been nice listening to her and her stories. Then we've got Mogollon Monster. That's Moggs and Stevie B. They rock. They're really cool. They have their show WTF Live, which stands for Why the Fascination. So they're really cool to watch. And then Cryptid Fan 94. We've got Bigfoot Reports and Data with Harley Owens. Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project, Mary Fabian. She's great to listen to. What a soothing voice. And Bigfoot Believers. We love Daryl Denton. PJ Arkansas Sasquatch. PJ, she's a sweetheart. DAX Machina with DA Roberts and Robbie Raines, the new author. Congratulations to him. And then, of course, Fun Adventures with Bud and Angie. I know we have others to mention. I'm making a list. So I just wanted to start with you all. And Gary Spikes, thank you so much for your support. You're a great moderator, above and beyond. And thank you for including the links on our show. We definitely, we're all about encouraging everyone to learn and to educate each other. So thank you, Gary. And you have a great directory of information there.
Moggs, she's like, I want to say it correctly. She actually looked it up and did a thing that told her how to pronounce. You said it, and then she went and checked somewhere else, and she's like, okay, now I know how to say it correctly.
So yeah, but yeah, we've been very fortunate with a great supporting groups of people, and we love it. So
and
thank you.
Yeah, I don't have much more to talk on right now. I do want to talk about our show next week. I know it's Easter. We're on at 5. If you're busy, obviously you can watch later. Next week, I'm excited. It's not going to be a conspiracy theory thing. Next week, I'm bringing on a January 6th attendee. He was there January 6th. He was close to the front row. He's got lots of stories to tell about what really happened that day, what he really saw. He's got some Ray Epps commentary in there that he witnessed, some pictures. And I'm really excited because I really want people to know the truth about what happened that day. We weren't there, but we spent the entire day from probably 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning till midnight watching independent, I guess, journalists filming it as it went on. And we saw pretty much everything that went from down on the ground to the people on the scaffolding to inside the Capitol. And I just think it's something that needs to be looked at, because we've been hearing lots of things that the mainstream media has been telling us, that this was the worst day ever in U.S. history. And we all know that it's by far not the worst day in U.S. history, that it was a insurrection. And I said that day, if this is called an insurrection, that is the worst insurrection ever. Nobody was armed. Anyway, we'll get into that next week.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really excited about that, because I just want people to start hearing the truth about what really happened that day. Again, that's what we're here for. We're not going to have conspiracy theory show every week. We could. I want to cover topics that are big. So when we do a show, if it's a conspiracy theory show from now on, it's going to be an actual, MK Ultra program. We'll talk about that. But people are always welcome. We'll always put the link in chat for you to join in. Whatever your opinion is. If your opinion is different than mine, awesome. That's what I want. I love conversation. That's what it's supposed to be about. Unfortunately, the country's gotten away from that, and we let the media divide us, and we need to get away from that. Unfortunately, we might be too far down the road. I don't know. But you got anything else?
Yeah, I've been looking. I can't find the exact channel or link, but back to frequencies and vibrations. The absolute best shows I've heard on it was by Brad Lail, Lail. Brad Lail had such incredible information. So sorry I don't have a link, but if you just YouTube search for Brad Lail, and I hope that you can hear what he has to say. That was one of the absolute best shows I've ever heard.
So real quick, I've got my paper now on the Georgia Guidestones. Let me just read a little bit off. I don't want to get into it, but it was erected in 1980 and it was destroyed in 2022. Again, they don't know who. It was 6 granite slabs, and I believe, I'm not sure on the height, they were either 10 or 12 feet tall, maybe 8. Each side was written on. It contained 10 guidelines or principles written in English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, traditional Chinese, and Russian. It represented most of humanity is what it said. That's what these were for, the guidelines. And everything was from maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature, guide reproduction wisely, improve fitness and diversity with a new living language, rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason, protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court, which kind of sounds good, that no war, but let's be completely honest with each other. War is mankind. Mankind's always battled each other. That's just how life is. You get in a fist fight in a bar because somebody doesn't agree with you. That happens. That's just how worlds happen. You have greed, you have all of that. But anyway, avoid petty laws and useless officials. Wow, that would pretty much get rid of the American government. Anyway, balance personal rights with social duties. Prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. Now, I'm not quite sure what that means, and be not a cancer on earth, leave room for nature. So it makes sense, a lot of it. But I also heard that this was, conspiracy theory wise, it was written by a Satanist. So I don't know. If you go that factor, that's a whole nother podcast. So anyway, I just wanted to read that to you. I highly suggest looking it up. If you're curious, it'll tell you all kinds of things. Absolutely, bud. They did. I had more information. That's why I'm telling everybody to look it up. There's so much more about the Guidestones that's it's got astrological stuff on them, and it's really wild. So, Wendell, always the jokester, Wendell. I love it. Anyway, I think that's about it for the day. I appreciate everybody listening to me ramble on about this stuff. Again, don't involve yourself with conspiracy theories too much. If you question something and you want to know, research it yourself. Don't go to Wikipedia. Do your own research. You have a brain. You can think. That's how it works. And we appreciate everybody being here. If anybody has any idea for future shows, you can email us at ocpotr@yahoo.com. It's actually on our Facebook page and our Facebook group page. So feel free, give us ideas. We love it. Again, everybody, please do your research and question everything that's going on around you. There's reasons for everything that's happening these days, just like in the past. And we care about you and we want you to enjoy life. That's why we tell you these things. So all I can say is we'll see you next Sunday.
Yes.
5 p.m. Central. We love you all. Thank you
Yes.
for stopping by and listening to us,
Mhm.
and hope to see you next time.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for a great show. Thank you for joining us.
Be sure and come watch Selena and Greg Ogles in 45 minutes. Awesome. All right. I guess that's it. Are you done?
Yep. Good night, y'all. We'll see you next Sunday evening.
Yep. Love y'all.
Love you.
Bye.